Welcome back to the Best of Health podcast. My goal is simple. Each episode, I hope to provide you with insightful conversations with a varied scope of healthcare professionals, clinicians, researchers, functional medicine practitioners, and industry leaders to open up the dialogue to inspire you, the listener, to consider that declining health as we age is not a given, and that with the right information, many chronic diseases are indeed preventable. I hope to engage and inspire everyone to achieve the very best of health. Welcome back, everybody, to the Best of Health podcast. And today I am thrilled. I'm always thrilled, but today I'm especially thrilled to have my really dear friend and colleague, Melanie Brown, here with me today. Melanie is a qualified nutritional therapist of 20 years, and she has gone on to do an undergraduate degree in nutritional medicine and particularly specialises in fertility and helping women around fertility, those that have gone or have tried IVF. And what she doesn't know about this area is not worth knowing. So I am absolutely delighted to have Mel, who we fondly call, on the pod today, and we will be delving into this area in great detail. Mel, welcome.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm always happy to talk to you, as you know. It's a great opportunity. Just to say that it's a postgraduate degree in nutritional medicine. It was a master's, just to say that.
Very important. Thank you.
That, yes.
Very important. So Mel, I know that I've known you for many years, and that you have a real sort of specialist interest in preconception, IVF, and pregnancy nutrition. Could you explain to our listeners there is a mixture of which some are nutritional therapists themselves, but many are not, most are not. Could you explain to our listeners what drew you into this particular specialism?
Well, Tanya, partly I sort of fell into it, I guess, after leaving university 20 years ago. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I was interested in infertility and fertility because I struggled to have kids myself, and I kind of knew what it was like, that feeling. And then I was lucky enough to be offered a very part-time job at a clinic, which is now the Zeta West Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
Zeta was very pioneering in her day. She was one of the really early people to introduce a more holistic way of looking at things. And she didn't actually have an IVF clinic. People know her now for her IVF clinic, but actually then she just had a clinic with acupuncture, hypnotherapy, nutrition, and I was going to just sort of work with somebody who was a qualified nutritionist very part-time. And then she went and got pregnant, and so I got back up and told, right, you have to come in and you have to do it. And I was practically borderline hysterical. I wasn't borderline hysterical. I was thinking, oh my God, I don't know anything about hormones and anything like that. So it's a bit baptism by fire, because I bought a book and I read the book, and there wasn't much around in those days. And I went in, and I remember I didn't even have a desk. They'd forgotten to get me a desk. And I had a completely full day. And when we were at university, we used to have a polyclinic where we did hapless members of the public would come in and be practiced on for about £5 by students. And I used to hyperventilate if I had more than one patient in a day. And when I went to Zeta's, I think I had something like 10 patients booked in, all one after the other, and no lunch. And that was my baptism into the world of fertility. Yes, but that was 20 years ago, and I learned such a lot. And
I've seen your kitchen at home, and you have all these amazing photos of couples that you have helped along the way and having succeeded, and their respective children. Are there any from those days that you still keep in touch with?
Well, interestingly enough, I was, this was 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
we were in their early 30s, my clients then. And now they're all coming back because they're in their early 50s.
Amazing.
Know what happens in your early 50s. So they're back for the old menopause nutrition and stuff, which is great because the kids are teenagers and, or in their 20s at university. So,
Right.
it's really nice. So, yeah, I do see them.
That's amazing. That's so fascinating. So nutrition, as we know, can obviously truly really help improve fertility. And if somebody is coming to you, which I'm sure happens, that because I know that you obviously only see couples, you don't just see either the woman or the
Do
man.
I see them singly as well. I don't just see couples. Yeah, it's
But
most.
do you find that there is some maybe skepticism around the fact that a nutritional and a truly holistic approach can be helpful? What would you say the foundations are for sort of when you're speaking to those initial clients? What are the absolute musts for you to be working with somebody in that area?
Well, when you say about skepticism, you're absolutely right. There is still, unfortunately, quite a lot of skepticism within IVF clinics, for example. Sometimes men can be a little bit skeptical, but that's possibly because already they've had a lot of, slaps on the wrist and no, right, I've read that you can't drink and you mustn't drink coffee and you mustn't cycle and you mustn't. There's a lot of no's and, things like that. So people feel already as if they're being punished, it's like a
Yeah.
punishment. And then it's even worse. You have to go and see some bloody nutritionist who's then going to make it even worse for you. I try and actually make my consultations as informative but also not particularly stringent and strict, because people don't comply, that. If you impose a set of rules on people about diet, they don't comply, and also they see all their friends around them having babies, maybe smoking, drinking, eating chips, and it just doesn't make sense. So you have to take a slightly different attitude and look at sperm and eggs the same way that you would look at heart cells and skin cells. And people often think, oh, I'll do this for my cholesterol and I'll do that because to look
Yes.
after my skin, and they kind of don't realize that egg and sperm cells, your gametes, they carry the DNA. They're so important. They're the most important cells in your body in a way. And they need to be looked after. And so I think, first of all, you just have to kind of engage people in that this is what they are. They carry the DNA of your future child. And if you want a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy, it's probably quite a good idea to have healthy sperm. And I think a lot of people, not so much women with eggs, I think it's rammed down everybody's throats now about age and egg quality. And unfortunately, IVF clinics always drive that message home as well. It's quite divisive, actually. Egg, it's all the woman, it's you and your knackered old eggs. And if only you
Yes.
met your
Yes.
partner 10 years earlier, I think it feels like a lot of blame goes on the woman. And I think a lot of male fertility is not properly addressed, partly because I think there's some culture about not wanting to upset men, or, it's a kind of weird thing, Tanya, actually. So it's kind of explaining relatively simply, I think, the things that we know from research that help male fertility and the things that help female fertility, and the things that we know from research that don't, that hinder it, and
Yeah.
just explaining to people the background, why. How it is when you're a nutritionist, when people are exposed to dietary advice, they get sort of rather generic stuff about eat your 5 a day and eat
Yeah.
wholemeal bread and eat your 2 fish portions a week. And they don't really know why. And I think if you know why, this is what this does to your ovaries, and this is how this affects the body of the sperm and the ability of the sperm to swim, that will affect that positively, then it sort of resonates better.
Yes, I totally agree. There's a lot to unpack there. Around the language that is used around, the language that is used and the negative connotations, and absolutely sort of the phrases like poor quality eggs, inhospitable womb. I think all of these are incredibly negative, but what you have also articulated is that when you inform a couple on your informing around the importance and what the mechanism of those cells do, then the penny begins to drop and you're connecting dots, and you're placing something in context that then hopefully begins to make sense.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it is also, something that we all learned very early on when we were doing our training, is that locus of control. When you're trying to have a baby, you are on the internet and you're failing. And generally, sometimes you're not succeeding quite early on in the process. I think that we've all got to, we've spent years taking contraception and stopping having babies. And then you think, right, I would like to have a baby by May because I'd like to have a baby in the summer, and I'm going to stop contraception and then we'll start having sex around day 14 because that's when I ovulate. And then you're a bit surprised when it doesn't happen immediately. So you start panic, you look on the internet, there's a trillion billion, wasn't even around the internet when I was trying to have a baby, thank the Lord. But, there's nonsense that you see. And then you get yourself in a complete muddle, and then you go for a test, and then maybe the sperm test is not very good, and your AMH, your anti-Malarian hormone, your hormone of ovarian reserve is a bit low. People then just really go into this biggest, blindest panic, and before you know it, you're down the IVF route anyway, and then you maybe have a failed IVF. It just catapults out of control. And sometimes they ask, and often men will say to the clinics, if it's a male factor issue, is there anything I can do to improve my sperm for the next IVF cycle or for me to conceive naturally? And usually the answer will be no, there's nothing. It's only medicine and drugs. And that is very difficult for people. And I think just funnily enough, just changing your diet and understanding why you're doing it, doing more exercise, not sitting down all day, getting your sleep. We talk about circadian rhythms and hormones and things. It gives you back some control, and you leave that consultation feeling that you've got some power to influence the circumstances rather than feeling always so powerless and helpless.
Absolutely. So that resonates with me so much. I've just been just finished actually running a course for practitioners all around the HPA axis and how that impact, obviously being the master controller, of course, how that impacts the relay hormones, that some of those that you've been talking about. So in the research, which I know you have dug into in the most intricate and minutiae moment, what are those in terms of when we talk about certain diet and lifestyle factors that you have seen that can improve the quality of follicular genesis, so that process of developing healthy follicles and healthy eggs, which we are told as women there is nothing we can do. But what do you see are the key nutrients and maybe sort of contradictory lifestyle factors that you see that make an impact on the development of those?
Well, certainly, I'd say the number one, and there's plenty of research to demonstrate this, the number one lifestyle factor that affects egg quality is smoking. We know that smoking really, really reduces ovarian reserve. Heavy smokers have earlier menopause. It's a big issue. Can
I just interject there in terms of, could you explain what ovarian reserve is? Because
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Some people probably won't know what
reserve, measured by a hormone called anti-Malarian hormone, is really just tells you how many eggs, not how many eggs, but what your sort of general overall egg amount of eggs that you might have left
Production, like, yeah.
in your ovaries, because we're all born with a finite number of eggs, but our eggs are made when our mothers are pregnant with us at about 20 weeks gestation.
I think that's incredible.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, you can impact, they say that your egg quality can be impacted by what your grandmother did when she was pregnant with your mother. Now, my grandmother smoked herself. I mean, she didn't smoke herself to death, actually. She lived until she was in her 90s, but she smoked 60 cigarettes a day from about the age of 14 until she was 80. And this continued through pregnancy. But funnily enough, my mum went through very early menopause, and both my sisters and I, we followed her. We were 42 when we hit the menopause.
Gosh.
I love my grandmother, but I wish that she hadn't smoked herself for that reason. But so smoking is a big one. Obesity is a big one. Obesity and its comorbidities, the things that go with obesity.
Okay, go on, explain what those are.
Be obese. So it's not just being obese, it's eating what we call an obesogenic diet. So the type of food you eat that makes you obese in the first place really makes things 10 times worse, because it will be a diet that is probably full of processed food, high sugar, industrial cooking oils, those kind of foods, which on their own have an impact, but then they cause a person to become obese. And then you've got this fatal combination of sort of toxins hitting all the cells. So, and obesity impairs your ability to really use IVF drugs particularly well. So IVF requires that the BMI is at a certain level, below, for private IVF clinics below 30, for NHS below 35. So I see a lot of clients that need to get their BMI down, but they're in a hurry. You know, it's not like you've got 2 years to do it. Yeah. Ideally, you want to do it over 18 months or something.
Yeah.
You can't say to people, right, you've got to lose, 2 stone in 6 weeks or even 12 weeks. So that can be a bit problematical. So, but, you can do it, as you can change people's diets, and they're very motivated. When you want to have a baby, you're highly motivated.
Sure.
So obesity, smoking, obviously a very, just a generally poor diet, because your eggs, again, very important cell membrane. So
Yeah.
like choline.
Where do we get choline?
We get choline from eggs.
Yeah.
We like eggs because eggs not only have choline, but they also contain lutein. Lutein is the orange pigment in the yolks. Now think luteinizing hormone. So an egg is without thinking too much about the origin of eggs, it's not totally dissimilar to what goes on in our own bodies. That orange yolk is packed full of lutein. Lutein, basically, when you eat carotenes, the orange pigments in foods, they sort of go to your ovaries, they go to your follicles. If we look at a cross-section of a corpus luteum, which is what a follicle becomes when it's expelled the egg into the fallopian tube, you look at a cross-section of a corpus luteum under a microscope, it's bright orange. So, and these carotenes come from the diet. So that's the big thing is the carotenes in the diet. So I get my clients to have lots of those in their diet.
And you have an infamous salad. You have. Let's talk through your infamous salad.
My infamous salad is egg and sperm salad, which usually makes people blanch with horror, particularly the men, as you can imagine. And I have to quickly say, no, but it doesn't contain egg or sperm. But it's just good for eggs and sperm. One of my clients called it egg and sperm salad about 15 years ago, and I've just kept it. Brilliant. So basically, it's packed full of carotenes. Now, these orange pigments are also in dark green leafy vegetables. So spinach is our second big source of lutein. We love lutein. Oh. It's a very fine thing for the ovaries. And then we've got carrots and peppers. Then we've got tomatoes for a little bit of lycopene and vitamin C. And then we've got watercress. That's your favorite king of vegetables, DNA repairing properties. Avocado, natural food-based vitamin E, protein. We love our vitamin E to come from food, don't we? We want our seeds and our nuts and our green leafy vegetables and avocado, because natural vitamin E is so much better for you. And then olive oil. We've got to have our oil because the carotenes are fat soluble.
Yeah.
So fat-free, this, that, and the other is an anathema to me. I just think these low-fat diets just make me kind of have the vapors.
So let's just explain that out. So a lot of those nutrients that Mel has just been showcasing, she said that you may have missed it, are fat soluble, which means to be able to absorb them, we need a transporter.
Yeah, it's a transporter. Yeah, exactly. So your dry salad with your fat-free olive oil, it's going nowhere fast, that's for sure. And olive oil itself has very potent antioxidants. It's a very complex sort of chemical structure, olive oil. And so we love that in the diet. The Mediterranean diet, it's a concept more than a reality a bit now, I think.
Yes.
Relies as much on the olive oil as it does on the vegetables, I think. Well, I think lots of research does that.
And they drizzle it over everything, don't they? They cook the food, but then they use it as a condiment,
I love it. I drizzle it over broccoli, everything. I just love a really good, fragrant, peppery, spicy olive oil, and you just taste those antioxidants, those compounds that protect your cells. So
incredible.
So that's egg and sperm salad. And then they have a cooked carotene, because cooking makes the carotenes even more bioavailable. So they're one of the foods, orange vegetables, where they're probably healthier in a way than raw carrots. So raw carrots have vitamin C and fiber. Cooked carrots have lots of beta carotene, because
good to know.
It breaks down the fibers. So I sort of say to my clients, like, have your egg and sperm salad for all your raw ones, and then a portion of a cooked carotene. So I'm a big meal planner. I like people to plan their meals, because they've got to get these foods in. So they've got to slot them in somewhere. So I always say, your evening meal, do that first, because then you've got something for lunch the next day. You can double up your meals if you have a bit something for lunch. So you need a cooked carotene in your lunch. So that might be roasted butternut squash or sweet potatoes, just a steamed carrot, some peppers in a stir fry, or just on the side, a carrot. When in doubt, just steam a carrot. So it's carotene's very important. Next,
great, and so such tangible. That's what our clients just are hungry for. No pun intended. Is that they want ideas and concepts, and that are easy, and absolutely that now that we might be going back to some form of going back into an office type environment and not working at home, but that it's something that's transportable and that they can readily sort of fit into their day without it feeling like they're being put in a food prison.
Yeah, and you feel good. You know what it's like, Tanya. You do feel it's, don't get me wrong. I love a sandwich. I love sandwiches, but I couldn't possibly eat sandwiches for my lunch every day. I'd be asleep on my desk and I don't feel right. I have for me, egg and sperm salad is anti-aging salad. So it's the same salad, but it's
just reframing it. Perfect.
Slowing down the process of aging salad. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. We heard it here first, guys. You heard it here first. Yeah. All credit to Mel. Okay. Can we discuss a little bit about what the main nutrient that everybody talks about about fertility is folic acid, and could you sort of explain the difference between folic acid and folate, and sort of what the sort of differences is?
Well, that's a good question, because I don't think so many people don't seem to know, and I'm not even entirely sure that one gets it right. But basically, folic acid is synthetic. It's the synthetic version of folate. So it's very cheap to produce, which is why it's, you can buy it, you get it on prescription if you need it. It's also the reason that people are against fortification in this country, because folic acid is synthetic, and some people can't metabolize it properly. It gets stuck in
Yep.
what's known as the folate cycle, and it just gets stuck and it doesn't get through to the other end, as it were. And we need our folic acid, our folate, the two words are interchangeable, and I'm falling into that trap of interchanging them again. Folate is found in food. It is in green leafy vegetables.
In foliage is an easy way to remember it.
Foliage. And some time ago, I can't remember when, they discovered that we need folic acid to help the neural tube close of a baby. And the neural tube is very important. It closes around about 8 weeks. And it was discovered that adequate amounts of folate were required for this process. And some people, as I said before, cannot metabolize their folic acid or folate properly. So they end up running a little bit short of it. And actually, all women have to have 400 micrograms of folate, because we also believe it's good for egg quality. And it's to do with
Interesting.
With methylation, with a process called methylation, which Tanya actually is much better at explaining.
We won't delve into that, but it's a chemical process that happens.
Chemical process that happens to your DNA, basically.
Yep.
And so we need our folate for that. So for egg quality, it's important. Although you can take folic acid, so long as you can absorb it, then you're fine. Of course, the problem comes when you don't know whether you can absorb it or not. And that tends to be looked at if you have recurrent miscarriage, for example. You'll have a test to see whether you're absorbing folate properly or folic acid properly, and then you'll get a huge big dose of it prescribed. But generally, if you're planning for a baby, you have to take a supplement that either contains folate or folic acid. I recommend folate, as do most nutritionists, because of that ease of absorption. You don't have to worry about, oh, is it going to get through? You know,
yes.
It's going to get through. And usually a multivitamin has the cofactors, the vitamins that help folic acid on its way. So they're vitamin B6 and vitamin B12, and they all work together. They kind of go round together, and they do this metabolic process, this chemical process that we were talking about to the DNA. So that's why it's so important.
Brilliant. Thank you. So we've sort of focused a lot on fertility and pregnancy, and you mentioned that you work with women in what I'm fondly calling the second act of a woman's life, which is sort of the menopause transition and menopause. So but you also work with supporting women with endometriosis and PCOS as well, don't you?
Yeah, I do, because they're such common causes of fertility issues.
Yes. So with PCOS and endometriosis, would it be, as an umbrella term, would you say it's fair to say that these are sort of inflammatory in nature, and they are inhibiting through different mechanisms, they're sort of inhibiting the natural feedback loop of the communication with the hormones?
Oh, yes, absolutely. You know, polycystic ovaries, they're both very complex conditions.
Yes.
They're what we call multifactorial conditions of hormone dysregulation, of inflammation, of genetics, of autoimmunity. You know, so endometriosis certainly has an autoimmune component to it.
Right.
So they're very complicated to treat, and so they tend to be treated medically to suppress the symptoms. So, you know, you suppress the pain of endometriosis, or people will go on the pill. Of course, that is the first port of call for anybody with either endometriosis or polycystic ovaries, is going on the contraceptive pill. But that's not much good when you want to have a baby. Obviously, you've got to come off the pill, and then all the symptoms come back. So it's complicated, but certainly, you know, as you know, Tanya, there are two conditions where certainly nutrition can have a very negative and a very positive impact, and lifestyle on both of those conditions. You can really help them through how you manage your diet and lifestyle, for sure.
because this more holistic approach, used in the right sense of the word, I always labour a little bit over using the word holistic, because it maybe conjures up sort of, nothing against anyone that plays the tambourine if they're listening,
Yeah.
but it conjures up sort of, sort of
What my mum called knit your own yogurt.
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
a truly holistic approach is perfect for a multifactorial condition, in terms of unpicking that environment, and sometimes going at, because our hormones are so beautifully elegant and delicate, sort of sometimes that very, what I would call, going at it with a blunt instrument of using the oral contraceptive pill, which just shuts everything off. We're not sort of giving it that delicate attention, really. And this is where the work that you do and the work that we do around women's hormones can be really, truly revolutionary, really, because we're working at that level.
Yeah, you just work at a deeper level. With polycystic ovaries, many women are treated with metformin. Glucophage is a drug that diabetics have to control blood sugar, because dysregulated blood sugar is a real feature of polycystic ovaries. But actually, you can teach women to control their own blood sugar, to manage their diet so that their blood sugar doesn't go out of control, rather than giving them a drug that then suppresses that, but doesn't get to the root of the problem, which is dysregulated eating. When you have polycystic ovaries, you're really disadvantaged. You have a lot of carb cravings. You want to eat carbs. It's very difficult not to eat carbs, but we know that the more carbs that you eat, because of the effect carbohydrates have on blood sugar, the more you want to eat. So it's very difficult to break that vicious circle without, again, a quite structured explanation as to and a bespoke approach to how to make your meals nice and tasty, but how to not eat chocolates in the middle of the afternoon, and then take your metformin, to sort of solve the problem of eating the chocolate. It's kind of difficult.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. And without getting too technical, but I think it's, our listeners are so hungry for information. There is such a fascinating link with the other sort of, one of the other hallmarks of PCOS, polycystic ovaries, is androgen type symptoms. So
it's a terrible combination. Yeah,
it is a terrible combination.
It's a very uncomfortable and difficult, because acne is a big feature, and when our skin is our first thing, and we just, people's confidence just goes through the floor. Overweight, male pattern baldness, bloody androgens have a lot to answer for, actually.
Yeah.
Pattern baldness, hirsutism, which is facial and body hair. So, you can lose the hair off your head and grow it on everywhere else. Those are quite extreme cases. Most people sort of have a bit of one and a bit of the other, and
Yes.
But it's very difficult. And so then you've got to then look at the hormones, obviously the hormone testosterone, that is kind of gone, but that's insulin again. We're all still back to blood sugar control.
Yes, so let's just close that loop, because I think this is fascinating. I think what a lot of women, well, there's no reason why they would know, but we know because we learn it in college. But estrogen in the ovaries is actually made from testosterone. So when in a condition like PCOS, high levels of blood sugar will actually increase the production of testosterone, and that sort of just feeds that cycle, and it can become a vicious loop. So sometimes understanding the mechanism gives somebody that carrot, if you like, to make the changes that you're asking them to.
Yeah, sometimes I do a flow chart for people, just really simple one, sugar. So you consume your refined carbohydrates, your, say, Cocoa Pops for breakfast.
Yeah.
And so you'll eat that, or a pastry, or a croissant, or all those yummy things that people do eat, or your white toast or something with jam, or something like that.
Yeah.
And you say, right, this now enters your stomach, it is broken down in a nanosecond,
Yeah.
then deluges sugar into the bloodstream. Your pancreas goes, oh shit, there's a whole ton of sugar in the bloodstream. Emergency, emergency, emergency. Release insulin really quickly. So insulin then comes into the bloodstream, grabs the sugar, puts it into the fat cells, into the fat cells of the
Yep.
stomach, because that's the emergency pace for it. There's no time to put it into the liver and deliver it to the places that are healthier. It's an emergency, so it has to go in there. Then you've got this testosterone then comes up and goes, hello, yes, I'm here too, and I see you're here. So testosterone is driven by these increased insulin levels. Then you get these multiple follicles because LH, luteinizing hormone, then remains high in the bloodstream. So the brain then can't pick up that you're got to ovulate. It's got to surge luteinizing hormone. So the whole thing is just a hormonal nightmare, and it comes from the consumption of those Cocoa Pops at the beginning of the cycle.
Yeah.
So
Brilliant.
you can say, look, if you think about this carb breakfast, you then need the things that your body finds difficult. The stomach takes time to digest. So you're thinking always fiber and protein. You're thinking about how hard do you have to chew this how hard do I have to chew it in my mouth before it will go down my throat? And if you don't have to chew it at all, that is probably not, it's going to be the same in stomach, isn't it?
That's great. Yeah, fantastic way to explain that.
Everything is slow. It's drip, drip, drip into the bloodstream. Insulin is like, oh, hello, right. I'll just pop this into the liver and that can go there and this can go to that cell. And then testosterone is still asleep at that stage because it hasn't been woken up, and everything calms down. It's the only way. Sometimes I like those visuals when that's how I kind of explain.
Me too. Yeah. And that's been a little bit harder via Zoom, but we can find ways around it. But that's fantastic to be able to show a flow chart, and it's about breaking those cycles of hormonal sort of anarchy and disruption, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about understanding insulin sensitivity as well, because the more we produce insulin, because the more sugar we eat, the more insulin is produced, our cells just become less sensitive to insulin. So they start to ignore it, and the sugar stays in the bloodstream then. And that, of course, is what leads to diabetes, because your sugar is not being taken out of your bloodstream then quick enough.
Yeah.
And then that causes aging cells. Well, ages, very good word. Ages are formed by sugar and protein on the cells. And when you have diabetes, that sugar and staying in the bloodstream is what makes people go blind, and it's what makes them have gangrene in their legs and have to have their legs amputated. It's that destruction.
Or coming back along the spectrum, but wrinkles as well.
And wrinkles, exactly. No, I always I'm poking my wrinkles now. Wrinkles. Ages, great name for aging. Ages are responsible for that, and that's your glucose sitting around in your bloodstream.
Yeah.
Hello, where's insulin? Oh, it's there, but I'm not taking any notice of it now. So it's all down to that. It's all down to that food that you're eating, and then your exercise as well. So the two things combined, then your well-chosen supplements that have been researched to help reduce blood sugar, help make a lot of supplements help resensitize your cells to insulin. They don't stop things, but they help your own body start to deal with that. And if your diet is then under control, you've got a nice kind of perfect combination of, doing your exercise, which improves insulin sensitivity. And all of that then calms down. And it's amazing how people can get their menstrual cycles back. One of the features of polycystic ovaries is no menstrual cycle, or very long cycles. So 40, 50, 60-day cycles. And that makes people feel crap, because you don't know when you're ovulating. So you can't anyway plan sex. But also, you quite often feel like you've got permanent PMS,
Yes.
Permanent feeling like I feel like a period's coming, and then it doesn't come. And then, of course, people think they're pregnant as well. So it's a treble whammy. So they do a pregnancy test, and then it's negative, and then it's despairing. But you can control that just by bringing your menstrual cycle back. Gives you back such a load of control.
Of course. Yeah. and it's like depositing health in the bank, isn't it? Every time we have a natural cycle, it is like depositing sort of that health in the bank for the future.
Absolutely. Estrogen and menstrual cycles are very, very important for women,
Yeah.
for all of our health.
Mm-hmm. Mel, I think that is a fantastic time to leave that. It's been so fascinating, and love to get you back on the pod another time and talk. Maybe next time we'll talk more about the second state, the second act of a woman's life, more about perimenopause and menopause, which is very topical at the moment.
Thank God. I'm delighted.
Delighted. It's time to shout loud and speak about it and share. And if women and men can get just one little bit of information from these chats with all of these specialists that I have on, then we're winning. So,
well, thank you. It's always a joy to talk to you anyway, but thank you for inviting me, and thank you anybody who's listening for listening.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Mel. We'll see you soon.